Tutankhamun's Gift by Robert Subuta. Long ago, by the sands of the Nile River, a great Egyptian queen gave birth to her last son. The child was small and frail, and sometimes all but forgotten among all the children of the royal household. Portraits of the family, by custom, could only include the daughters. But even if the sons had been shown, the littlest boy, Tutankhamen, might still have been left out. Yet no matter how small all the sons of the mighty Pharaoh Amenhotep III, ruler of Egypt, needed to be educated. So each morning, practically unnoticed, the little child Tutankhamen traveled to the house of the Menoi, or tutors, where, with the other princes who were children of the royal visitors from the distant lands, he quietly practiced his writing. When asked to speak aloud the words of foreign languages they were learning, his voice was the softest. In the afternoon, the princes wrestled, swam, and practiced archery. But since he was so small, Tutankhamen did not excel at sports. "Do not worry," said his Menoi. "You are a bright child, and someday your gift for the gods will be revealed." So Tutankhamen played by himself, making sparks with the spark maker, or racing with the royal dogs. On his way home to the place at the end of each day, Tutankhamen always stopped to watch his father's craftsmen. The pharaoh believed it important to build things to glorify the many gods he and the Egyptians worshipped. It seemed there were always a new temple being raised. Tutankhamen would watch, ignored by all, while workmen prepared huge blocks of sandstone to erect a wall of such a great temple. He gazed at the admiration as craftsmen used hammers and chisel to sculpture images of the gods or scenes of great battles on those walls. Later, painters would come and dip their papyrus brushes into pots of the brightly colored inks and embellish the scenes. After visiting a new temple, Tutankhamen often sneaked into the sculptor's studio and watched the artists create beautiful statues to place inside the temples. Some of the statues were made of solid gold, and they dazzled in the brilliant Egyptian sun. All this to please the gods and to keep them happy. "Someday," thought Tutankhamen, "I too shall do something great to honor the gods." But catching his reflection in the nearby pool, he saw a small boy slowly making his way home. Then one day the great pharaoh, his body old and tired, died. Sorrow enveloped the land. Women threw dust in their hair and wept, and the men left their faces unshaven, and no celebrations of any kind took place. Ruled by Amenhotep III, Egypt had enjoyed one of the most prosperous times in history. Like all Egyptians, Tutankhamen sadly wondered if such times could continue without his great father. The pharaoh's eldest son, Amenhotep IV, assumed his father's power. The people were hopeful, but Amenhotep IV was not like his father at all. He proclaimed that all Egypt should worship only one God, the God of the sun. He commanded all the temples be built to honor other gods be destroyed. Soon after, when Tutankhamen walked home from the house of the Menoi, he passed the same workmen and craftsmen as before, but instead of using their great hammers and chisels to create great things of grace and beauty, they used them to destroy images of the gods, were scraped off the walls of many of the temples, and the blocks of the temples were pulled down, and the statues were pulled out of the ovens and melted. Even monuments raised in honor of Tutankhamun's father were not spared. In a short time, the abandoned rubble of the temples was overgrown with weeds and covered with wind-blown sand. Tutankhamen still visited these temples, but wild dogs roamed through them, and eventually it was no longer safe. The people of Egypt whispered that the gods were angry and had forsaken them, and indeed it seemed true. The gods have left us because we have no holy places in which to dwell. The people cried. Tutankhamen felt lost and alone without the comfort of the mighty temples his father had built. Suddenly, Tutankhamen's brother died. The young pharaoh's death was mysterious, but the people did not mourn for him. They mourned for themselves and their future. We need a new leader to guide us, they said. Who will bring us back to the gods? Egypt must have a pharaoh. But who in the royal family could answer such a call? All eyes turned to Tutankhamen. Many as if seeing a child for the first time. He was only 10 years old, so small, so meek. Could this child really be the last heir to the throne of Egypt? Could a boy be a pharaoh? Then Tutankhamen heard the soft voice that came as if blown across the desert sands. It was the voice that grew from the hope and dreams of his great land, a voice that he alone could hear. Evil is seen best through the eyes of a child. Only the young can banish it and cause the truth to flower once more. Tutankhamen, the last son of the great pharaoh Amenhotep III, turned to his people and proclaimed, I, Tutankhamen, am Pharaoh, ruler of Egypt. I shall rebuild the temples and fill them with the monuments to the gods so the people will again have faith. I shall lead the people of Egypt through their suffering and tears so they may believe in themselves once more. This will be my promise to you and my gift to the gods. The people knelt before the boy and vowed with their lives to follow him. And the boy Tutankhamen restored the temples of the land and ruled over the people. It was said with kindness and a true heart until the end of his days.